PARANORMASIGHT, The Mermaid's Curse. By sheer coincidence, I ended up playing 100% in PARANORMASIGHT, The Seven Mysteries of Honjo just a couple of days before this came out. So I'd say I have a pretty fresh review on seeing how the dose went from one to the next. For brevity, I'll refer to this game as Honjo and the second game as Mermaid. For starters, Mermaid is already more mechanically deep, having more avenues of interactivity compared to Honjo. In Honjo, while there was inventory system, it had a little relevance outside the prologue tutorial and a single scene about 3 or 4 of the way through the game. Everything else was simply selecting options given to you. Meanwhile, with Mermaid, there is much more for you, mostly through puzzles, which is a breath of fresh air. The inventory system is a bit more present, though I do still think it doesn't quite reach its full potential. Once again, having limited points where it's put to use, though set points are much more impactful in my opinion. I do think this game outdoors Honjo in terms of stuff you do to directly engage with the game and story, and if Honjo had a little bit more like this, it would have been phenomenal. The diving minigame, while along with the additions to interactivity, I will admit is a bit lacking in use of potential. While we can max the stats out, there's a little incentive to do aside from getting a Mockingbird sticker, which having max stats does help considerably, though ultimately it doesn't feel worth the engagement in the long run. Aside from the opening section of the game, you're only ever required to play it once in the story, and it feels like a lot of energy went to largely inconsequential portion of the game, especially with all the work clearly put into it. The notes about the barren and lush areas really didn't seem to have any impact on things as well, and I only ever caught my foot on something 3 whole times while grinding out the max diving stats. Once you do the story thing and get the 2000 point score, there isn't anything to keep you, and that really feels awkward to say given it's a whole 3D rendered environment in an otherwise primarily 2D, relatively I guess because 2.5D because of the 360-degree views game. The way the characters were talking, along with the information you get from diving advice, I would have thought we would unlock different diving locations. But no, it's just the one. The story was very interesting, and I was constantly thinking about the potential twists and reveals that were waiting me. I won't go to depth so people don't get spoiled, but I think my only gripe is the love story near the end did seem a bit ham-fisted. Don't get me wrong, it was very sweet, but the retroactive implementation of it, exploited by the characters saying they would interact with each other too much, so as not to arouse suspicion, doesn't really cover up help out in the blue felt. Honestly, I would have enjoyed the story just fine without the aspect of it. This one is one of the just dyslexic thing because I have the big interest in Japanese media and have picked up a lot about the language just through passing interest, but a lot of the names kept getting jumbled up in my head and leaving me confused. So if you have similar issues, it may do you good to make your own notes about the characters so you can keep the things straight because even the file system wasn't the best help for me with all its text walls. Oh, yeah, I should mention, if you're interested in this game or the series, be expected to read. Like, read. Not just the character dialogue, but the files and such given to you. The files in this game are much more dense and longer than a Honjo, and while you won't necessarily need to read every single one, I managed the game fine without reading really any of the documents about the various locations. Much like in the Honjo, you should at least make yourself familiar with what file was what in general info for when you need to double check something for one of the various quizzes the game tosses at you. I think if you like the visual novels enough and the story interests you, then your own general curiosity should push you to reading what you'll need naturally, but I highly recommend checking files whenever you are commented about an update or addition. All that being said, I'd say this game is solid 9 out of 5 out of 10 for me, and Honjo would be about an 8.5 or 9 out of 10 for comparison. This game is lighter on the general horror atmosphere than Honjo was, and you don't necessarily need to have the played Honjo at the Mermaid, but given Honjo is the less dense, I would still recommend playing it first just to give yourself a less intensive idea as to what this will be like. I'm very excited to see where this series goes. My dear friend storyteller, I do hope you enlighten me again in the next Paranormal Side.